So it's time for your first flight, and I know there's that lingering question, will I break my drone and crash it on the first flight? And I say no, but there are a few things you have to get right in order for this to happen. And with this guide, you will definitely be able to fly your drone without breaking it on the first flight. And watch until the end of this video, I'll give you a few tips on how to fly a little bit smoother and how to crash the right way. Because yes, there is a right way to crash. So let's get flying. Wait up a second. Hold up. Time out. We are getting really far ahead of ourselves, which is exactly what happened the first time I flew. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought, this can't be that hard at first. I went outside, flipped the arm switch on, cranked up the throttle, and then I went
to infinity and beyond,
only to come crashing down on top of my house. Then I had to get a ladder to retrieve my drone, which was now in pieces. So let's not have that happen to you. Instead, we're going to make this guide specifically for you in your first flight to keep you, your house, and your drone and everyone around you safely in one piece. First off, let's gather what we need to go flying. If you have a Tiny Whoop drone that really flies best indoors, I would still encourage you to do your maiden flight outdoors in case of a flyaway. A flyaway is when the drone gets confused for whatever reason, and whenever you switch the arm switch on, it takes off full throttle. That way you won't hit the ceiling or your favorite pet. And that's my favorite pet. Say hi, Jones. First off, we need a bag to carry everything in. A convenient bag to get eventually is a drone carrying case. It comes with all these little compartments that you can customize and move so you can fit everything without it banging around the bag when you're traveling with it. But a book bag will suffice for now. And let's go over the list of everything we need to go flying today. Obviously, you're going to need the drone's goggle and RC, charged batteries, tools to take off your props in case you break one, screwdrivers in case something comes loose, and to be able to adjust your camera angle, extra propellers because you're going to break these a lot. And when I'm sitting in a chair, this is optional, but I don't like to fly standing up. In a case where you're going doesn't have a table and somewhere for you to sit, I always like to bring one because I always sit down when I fly. Me, I bring a camera accessory bag because of my GoPro and extra cameras. But for right now, just worry about a lens cleaner so you can keep your camera clean whenever you're flying. A piece of cardboard or some kind of landing pad. This is part of the tip I was talking about, landing safely at the beginning of the video. And we'll go over this later whenever we start setting up our drone. And I believe that's it. But one thing you need to ask yourself before going to fly, do I know which switches are assigned to what commands on my drone? How to arm and disarm the drone, and how to put it in horizon mode, which is the first mode you fly in when learning how to fly. And if you're watching this series in order, in part 2, we talked about this, learning which switches on your drone do what. And you know that by plugging your drone into Betaflight and seeing which commands in the mode tab is set up on. And if you haven't watched that, you can go check that out first to see which switches are assigned to what. So with everything packed and knowing what our controller does, we're good to go.
A few moments later.
Here we are at this cool little recreational park, which has minimal people during the day and is perfect for flying. First get somewhere to fly, always take a look around to see where you're going to be flying. See where you want to set up and look around for people, obstructions, or any low-lying power lines or lines anywhere that you won't be able to see while you're flying. And then once you do find a place to set up, find where you want to be taking off and landing from. And this is where we're going to put our cardboard or landing pad that we brought. And the first trick to not breaking your drone on the first day is soft landings. So before we put the goggles on, let's do a little hover test. So looking at the RC, let's make sure the horizon mode is in the right position and the arm switch is in the disarm position. When arming the drone, there's a little safety mechanism built in. You'll see when you plug the drone in and power up the RC, if the throttle stick is not all the way in the down position, the RC will beep and you will not be able to arm the drone, which makes sense. You don't want the drone to fly away when you arm it if the throttle is halfway up. This is another good way to problem shoot when you're having difficulties arming the drone, whether it be with a new build or just the drone you've been flying if you're having problems. check this first. Now we're gonna plug the drone in. You'll hear this beeping every time you plug it in. Each one of those beeping sounds means the ESC, the motors, and the flight controller are all talking to each other correctly. And another little FYI, if you go and plug your drone in and don't hear every one of those beeps, that can help you troubleshoot what might be wrong with your drone. Now let's sit the drone on the landing pad. So the drone's plugged in, the RC is on, we got the throttle down. Now let's flip the arm switch. Give it a little bit of throttle, get it up off the ground, let down on the throttle, and disarm. Let's do this a few times, every time getting a little bit higher, then bringing it down and disarming. This is the second trick to not crashing and breaking your drone on the first day. Even if you've been flying in the sim, there's no way to practice landing in it. And getting familiar with this muscle memory of arming, bringing the drone up, throttling it down and getting it as low as you can to the ground, and then disarming it is crucial to learn when first flying. So you don't let the drone flip out and get stuck on the roof, or if you disarm it high up and then have it come crashing down to the ground. And we'll do this line of sight with the first battery, or until you're comfortable with it. Remember, there's no rush when first starting to learn. Now is the perfect time to check the camera angle on the drone. You want to make sure it's no more than 5 to 10 degrees up when first flying. The further up that it's pointing, the faster you're going to have to go to keep it level. And we don't want that when you first start flying. You want it almost level, so whenever you're going at a nice, slow, consistent speed to learn. So let's look around right quick and try to find a little loop we can do that's around the grass with no obstructions if possible. So when we're flying, we're going to try to do this loop. So it's finally time to get in the air. Let's try to follow that course we planned out a second ago, and let's make that our first loop. Try to follow that course we planned out. Or if you feel more comfortable just flying in a straight line and turning around, do whatever feels right at first. Small steps on your first flight. But definitely get a feel for turning left to right and coordinating the yaw and roll together to get smooth turns. And a feel for the power of the throttle and how quickly the drone lifts up and comes back down to the ground. This is another reason that it helps to practice the hover test when first starting off before putting the goggles on to get a feel for the drone. The next thing you're going to want to notice in your goggles when wearing them is the on-screen display, and in the bottom right hand corner is the battery voltage to show you how much of your battery is left. When your battery is fully charged, it's usually at 4.1 to 4.2 volts. Let's not try to fly the drone lower than 3.8 to 3.75 volts. And when you get close to this, your goggles should tell you that it's time to land, especially on a ready to fly drone. That should be programmed in, but never go past 3.75 to 3.7 volts. You will drain your battery to the point where it will not be able to hold power anymore and sustain a charge. I will go further into depth into this into the next part of the series, where we will take a full dive into batteries and how important it is to understand them so they will last longer and to keep you safe. If you do crash, just remember to disarm your drone as quickly as possible and go take a look at it before flying again to make sure there's no debris in the motors and nothing stuck in the propellers. And in the final part of this video, remember when I told you there is a correct way to crash? When I used to skateboard, I learned that learning how to fall was just as important as learning how to land a trick, because you're not always going to get it right. When flying, if you ever see a crash is inevitable, always point the bottom of your drone directly at the impact. Whether it be in the wall, the ground, or even the ceiling, this is the strongest part of the drone, and you always want to try to crash towards it, instead of it crashing into your motors, your camera, or even your battery on top. And hopefully this video has given your drone the best chance of survival through and through. And if you found this helpful in any way, I'd greatly appreciate a like and a follow.